Good morning. Thank you for coming, nice and bright and early. We're doing lots of different talks throughout the day, and these are all fairly short and sort of informal and chatty, especially with a nice small audience. So if you've got questions, feel free to shout them out. But what we try to do is put together different talks about different things, and I've been asked to talk a little bit about this guy, Brick City, which is my book, which is in all good bookshops. You've got a copy of this, I know that. Do you have a copy? No? So you've got a copy. So it's a little bit of talk, say 15 minutes, 20 minutes or so, just about the making of the book and how you actually go, what goes on behind the book, a few tidbits. This is the picture actually that's used in the book, or one of the pictures that's used in the book. But the last time I saw that picture, it looked a bit more like this in a photographic studio, just to give you kind of a taster of what we're doing. But this is me. My name's Warren. I am an adult fan of Lego, or an A4. I'm also an exhibitor here. I've been exhibiting here, I think, for 5 years. I'm now an author, which is great, and a professional Lego builder. So I spend my days, day in, day out, building models out of Lego, which I've got to say is a pretty cool job. I'm quite happy with it. And how this all started was back in May of last year, May 2012. I got an email out of the blue from a publishing company that said, we'd see your model of King's Cross. So okay, it's some background. We've seen your model and we really like it, we'd love to put it in a book. And I went, absolutely, yes, I would love for it to be in a book. Their first comment was also, we need a few models, could you make about another 20 buildings the same size? No, I can't make another 20 buildings the same size. So I had a few chats about what was possible, what wasn't possible, and came up with a rough idea. And then what we do, when you're writing a book, you have to go and actually get the book, you have to sell it to people before you write it, so that you know once it's finished, it will go into bookshops. So what you do is you create a thing called a blad. Now, I believe it stands for Book Layout and Design, but basically it's a teeny tiny book. It's about 6 pages long and just shows you some very basic things of what's going to be in the book if the bookshops buy it. So my blad had just 3 models in it. These are 2 of them. So it had the London phone box, the New York taxi, and the other one was actually the Arc de Triomphe from Paris. Because we do have publishers in France, in America, and the UK who might want to buy it, so we'll make models for them. So this was quite a quick turnaround. I had a meeting, had a chat with some people and said, right, in 2 weeks' time you have to have this finished, because we have to go and sell it at a book fair. So you've got 2 weeks to build the models, design the models, create them, get them photographed, do all the instructions. So we did that, and that was May, still about May last year, and then it all goes very quiet. And the next thing I hear is August of last year, so nothing's happened over the summer at all. And I get the green light in August and they go, good news, we want to do your book, we want you to write a book. So you get that going, and then it's time to start choosing what's going to actually be in the book. Now at this point, this obviously didn't exist. But what the publishers really helpfully gave me was a completely blank book. So they gave me a book with 256 white pages in it and a cover and said, all you have to do is fill that. I was like, oh, okay, that's quite scary. So that's all we had to work from at this point in time. And we needed to choose which models we wanted to do. And actually, we put a lot of thought into that process. It wasn't just picking out the best models we could think of, because we wanted to make sure that if you're in the UK, there are British models, and if you're in Australia, there are Australian models, and some in Singapore, and some in Russia, and some in France. So we had to pick different models. We also didn't want to do them all as skyscrapers, because if you had a book that was just full of 30 or 40 skyscrapers, it would actually be a little bit dull. So we wanted a variety of different types of models, different sizes, also different styles of building. So there were some minifig scale, some micro scale, some big jumbo ones. And of course, then we're thinking about who we're going to sell it to. So we're trying to be a little bit sneaky. We think, well, we might sell it in Poland. Let's make sure we stick a Polish model in, just because it got sellable. So there's quite a lot of restrictions that actually go around this. And this is when we actually start to create a list. Now, for the adults in there, we spent 6 hours in a meeting going through all of these models, by which point we were really ready to just hit our heads on the table and give up completely. It was a horribly long process, but we did it in the end, and we came up with 108 models. So there's 108 in here, of all those different things. We then decided that 66 of those models were going to have instructions. So not all of them, things like St Pancras. So St Pancras is 180,000 bricks. It weighs best part of a quarter of a tonne. It took me 2 years to build. With the best will in the world, nobody is going to build that from instructions. And if we did, all we'd have is 256 pages of instructions for St Pancras. It wouldn't be anywhere near as exciting. So we decided that 66 of our models were going to have instructions. And then I had to go and design each one of these models. So I had to either design them actually in bricks, and actually build them with the bricks I've got, or design them in L-Draw. Now, who's used L-Draw or Lego Digital Designer? You do too. Okay, a few of you. So, for those that haven't, it's a digital sort of CAD tool that we use, and lots of the adult fans use L-Draw. And it contains pretty much all of the bricks that Lego have ever produced. So we can create them in CAD. This is a screenshot of the taxi we created in the CAD program. And it lets me, I don't have to worry about having the bricks in the right colours, if the model's going to hold together while I'm building it. So I can just use it to model the thing up, put it together in CAD, so I've got it in the computer. And I do them, depending on what type of model it is, some I'll just pull a bunch of bricks out of and start building, some I'll do it in L-Draw. All the ones with instructions, I create all of those in L-Draw because the CAD software actually lets me split the model down into layers with instructions. So I can generate the model and then I can go, like, the final step is adding these bits on, and the step before the final step is adding these bits on. And I actually work backwards when I'm doing it, because it's easier to have a full model and then take layers off from the top, rather than build up from the bottom. So for each of these 66 models, I've got to design the model, and then once I've got the model designed, I put it into the CAD software, and once it's in the CAD software, I put the steps in. And then that lets me take that CAD model of steps and I can export it into a separate piece of software which actually creates me a full set of instructions. So just like when you buy a Lego set that comes with instructions, I can create those instructions using the CAD models that I've got. And it's also, because it's entirely within the computer, it theoretically can't go wrong. Theoretically, there's a few interesting things that can happen, but you can't lose the bricks or forget to put bricks in and things like that. But as well as creating the CAD models, I actually have to create the actual models. So for every single model that's in the book, all the 108 models and the 66 buildable ones, I have to create the actual model as well. Because once the actual model is created, it then has to go from where I'm building the models into Photographic Studio, and then we put all the models into Photographic Studio, and I have a full-time photographer working on photographing the bricks. We had a slightly separate studio for some of the bigger models, but I think we spent about 2 months just photographing models continuously. So I'm sitting there building models, creating models, every couple of days, drive down to the studio, give the photographer more models, and he's just continuously photographing models. And then retouching the photos and making sure they fit and make sure they're the right shape for the page, all sorts of different things. So by the time we got to December 2012, the photographer studio was looking a bit like this. There was models everywhere. We were just running out of space to put anything at all. So there's a few there. This one here is the Colosseum, which I have next door. There's a windmill. There's the little typical Reichstag. That's Trevi Fountain, Buckingham Palace, all sorts of different models there, lying all over the studio. But by Christmas, we had finally finished, which, believe me, felt really, really good. So all the models were done, all the photography was done, Christmas time, sit back, relax. I think the last thing I sent to the publishers was actually New Year's Eve, 2012. The very last sort of edits that went back and forth. And then, it all was very quiet. You don't hear anything at all, because that's when they send all the files off to the printers to go and get the book printed. Now, my book, like lots of current books now, is printed in China. So what they do is they send all the files off to China, and they're all printed in China, then they load the books up onto pallets, and the pallets go into a big shipping container, and the shipping container goes onto a ship, and it gets shipped from China all the way back to the UK or across to the US or Australia. And the reason I know that is because I bought some books from the printers. Because as an author, you can buy books from the printer as well. And when you do that, they give you a little label with a shipping number on it. And you can actually track the container going around the world. It's really quite cool. So I spent about a week just watching this little ship go across the screen and tracked it all the way around. So they arrived for the start of May. And then once the books turned up, generally they ask you to go and do some launch stuff. So we had 2 book launches. The one on the left is a bookstore in Edinburgh, which is where I'm based. And the one on the right is Waterstones in Piccadilly, in central London. So you go and do a launch, and as part of that, I was asked to do a presentation a bit like this. But of course, the bookstore, they're used to selling books with actual words in it. So they said, oh, come and read a bit from your book. I was like, well, I could read a bit from the book, but it's not going to work. So I did a little presentation a bit like this, talked to some people, signed lots of books. I've signed more books than I care to think about. And you're also asked to do lots of press as well. So if you want to write a book, you've got to be pretty good at talking to the press and talking to people because they want to do interviews with you, radio interviews, TV interviews, all these sorts of things. And the reason for all of that really is because the publishers who are putting the money behind the book actually want to sell the book. So this is cool. If you ever write a book, the coolest thing in the world is to walk into a shop and see a book with your name on it on the shelf. Really cool. And this is the St Pancras model, which is fairly well travelled now. This was in Waterstones as well in Piccadilly. So we took the model down, put the model in whilst the store was open, of course. So lots of people walking around going, what are you doing? Lots of money. Built the model, left it in Waterstones for a month on its own. Came back a month later and took it out again, put it back in there. So we did all these sorts of things around May, and then basically you sit back because it's done. The only thing I've had recently, which was really quite nice, was this. My book is, because it's a picture book, it's very easy to translate into lots of different languages. So about 2 weeks ago, I think I received a big parcel from the publishers and went, oh, you might be interested in these. So this is, I'll get it right, German, Dutch, Danish, Russian. That's my name in Russian, which is cool. French, Swedish and Finnish. They're all exactly the same inside, pretty much. There's a few little tweaks and things like that. But generally they're the same. The one interesting thing I've found, the Danish copy doesn't have the Little Mermaid in it. Because it's illegal to do that in Denmark. You can't create a recreation of the Little Mermaid by law. We didn't know until the Danish publisher said, no, can't put more. So it's been a long journey. It's sort of been, good few months, and there's a lot of hard work in the process. But once it's done and you've actually got sort of a physical thing in your hand, and as I now do, I do 108 different models lying around, it's really, really rewarding. It's really good fun to do. So that's kind of all I've got as part of my presentation, but we've got lots of time for questions as well. We're trying to keep these nice and sharp, so lots of time for questions. So you can ask me anything about the book, or any about Lego, or the Belgian programs, or anything like that. Any other questions? Stunned silence. Oh, they're hungry. Were there any big models we didn't have we needed for the book? There were big models we wanted to do for the book, but no. Really, it was a question of time. So one of the things we had to do is look at that list of models and actually look at how much physical time there was to do it. And that does limit slightly what we can do. What we can do for the book, which you won't see here, is if you're taking a picture of a book, you're only going to see one side of the book. So things like the Reichstag, which looks lovely on two sides, if you turn the model around, it looks terrible. And we'd never be able to do that in a show here because you'd see all the way around it. But in a book, we know exactly how it's been photographed. So we do cheat a few bits, things like that, to make the models as big and complicated as we can in the time. But no, sadly, the larger ones were happily the ones that we already had. So, any other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much for your time. There's lots of other talks today, so if you want to come back and listen today. Otherwise, I'm in the main hall. with lots of books and models from the book as well if you want to come and see them. But thank you very much. Have a lovely day.